All right, let's talk about a word. A single word that might be one of the most powerful, most influential, and honestly, most misunderstood concepts out there. It shaped everything from art to our deepest fears for centuries. So let's just dive right in.
Do you know the word I'm talking about? Hell. For most people, hearing that word just instantly conjures up this really specific kind of terrifying image, right? It's become this huge, single idea, a place of ultimate punishment that's just baked into our culture.
So let's start right there, with that picture, the one we all kind of automatically see in our heads.
Yeah, this is the one. Unquenchable fire, endless torment, total separation from everything good. This is the image that absolutely dominates the conversation. And you know, it's funny, we often think this comes straight from the source texts, but it's been shaped so much by things like Dante's Inferno, by medieval art and folklore. It created this frankly horrifying vision of what comes next.
Okay, but here's the big question that kicks this whole thing off. What if that picture, that entire framework that's caused so much anxiety and debate for centuries, what if it's based on a massive misunderstanding? A simple mistranslation even? That's what we're going to explore.
All right, so here's the first big piece of the puzzle, and it's simple, but it changes everything. The English word hell. It's not nearly as simple as we think.
See, when early Bible translators were working with the original Hebrew and Greek scriptures, they ran into a problem. They found 4 totally different words that described, well, something to do with death or the afterlife. And they had to make a choice. Their choice, to translate pretty much all of them with one single English word, hell. Maybe it was for simplicity's sake, who knows? But that one decision kind of mushed all these different ideas together. And honestly, it's been causing confusion ever since.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Let's break this down. You have Sheol in Hebrew. This wasn't a place of torture. It was just the grave, the realm of the dead where everyone went, good or bad. Then you have Hades, which is basically the Greek version of that, a temporary unseen realm. Then there's Gehenna. Now, this was a real place. It was the name of a valley outside Jerusalem, a city dump that was always smoldering. So it became this powerful metaphor for complete destruction, for being utterly consumed. And finally, Tartarus. This one's only mentioned one time, and it's not even for humans. It's described as a prison for rebellious angels. See how different those are?
So you see the problem, right? The big question now is, when you read the word hell in a translation, which of these original words is it? Are they talking about the grave? Are they using a metaphor for destruction? Are they talking about this place for angels? Asking, which hell are we talking about? That one question completely changes the game.
And once you make that distinction, you realize there isn't just one view, a final judgment. This new clarity opens up at least 3 different interpretations, all with roots in the scriptures, that go way beyond that fiery picture we started with. Let's walk through them.
Okay, first up is the one we're all familiar with. It's called Eternal Conscious Torment, or ECT for short. This is the traditional view. The wicked suffer consciously, forever. It's built on a model of justice that's all about retribution, about punishment fitting the crime. But it also raises a really tough question, one that theologians have wrestled with for ages. How do you square infinite, endless suffering with a God who is described as infinitely loving?
Then there's the second view, annihilationism. The idea here is that the final judgment isn't endless suffering, it's, well, annihilation, ultimate destruction. People cease to exist. A key part of this view is the idea that immortality isn't something we're all born with, it's a gift from God. So when the scriptures talk about death and destruction as the final outcome, proponents of this view say, hey, maybe it just means death and destruction, an end.
And the third view is known as ultimate reconciliation. This is a really hopeful perspective. It suggests that in the end, God's love wins completely and that all people will eventually be reconciled to God. In this model, judgment isn't punitive, it's restorative. It's meant to correct and heal. And this isn't some brand new idea either. It's a view that was held by some really important early church fathers.
So, okay, if there are at least 3 biblically grounded ways to look at this, how did one of them, eternal conscious torment, become the default view for so many people for so long? To figure that out, we've got to do a little time traveling.
This timeline really lays it out. This idea didn't just pop out of the scriptures fully formed. The seeds were planted way back in the 300s BC, when Greek philosophy, not Hebrew thought, introduced this idea of an immortal soul that's separate from the body. Fast forward to around 400 AD, and you get the incredibly influential theologian Augustine. He's the one who really built the theological framework for ECT that the Western Church would adopt. Then things get political. In 553 AD, the Emperor Justinian actually uses his power to officially condemn the other views. And then, way later in the 1800s, you have this new movement called dispensationalism that introduces ideas like the rapture and really doubles down on this narrative of escaping a burning world, with a terrifying hell as the alternative.
And here's something that might surprise you. If you read the earliest, most foundational statements of Christian belief, like the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed, they say nothing about eternal torment, not a word. They focus on Jesus, on resurrection, on life everlasting. It really seems like the intense focus on hell was something that developed much, much later.
And all of this really brings us to the heart of the matter, because what you believe about hell isn't just about the afterlife. It says a lot about what you believe about justice itself. Is God's justice ultimately about retribution, or is it about restoration?
Let's just look at these two models side by side. On one hand, you have retributive justice. This is about payment, about balancing the scales. An eye for an eye. Sin is a debt, and it has to be paid with punishment. But then you have restorative justice. This model sees sin differently, not as a debt, but as a tear in the fabric of community. So the goal isn't payback. The goal is healing. It's about repairing the damage and bringing things back to wholeness, a concept the Bible calls shalom.
And this verse from the Apostle Paul it really sums up that restorative vision perfectly. He says, God was in Christ, reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them. You hear that? The goal isn't counting up sins to figure out the punishment. The goal is reconciliation. It's about restoring relationships, not settling scores.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, rethinking hell can actually rethink everything. It can shift the whole point of our faith. It stops being about an escape plan, like a fire insurance policy to get out of a burning world. Instead, it becomes this incredible invitation to join in on the work of healing and restoring the world, right here and now.
And that's the thought I want to leave you with. If God's justice is ultimately restorative, not retributive, if it looks more like a doctor healing a wound than a judge handing down a sentence, what does that change for us right now? How does that change the way we live, the way we treat each other, and the kind of world we're trying to build today?